It's time for the Daily Stand-Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. All right, so here's another hot topic. This is something that people have come to me with for some time now. They say their daily stand-up is dry or boring, and they're trying to find a way to improve that daily stand-up and make it something that makes sense, that's not just practical, but something that they can enjoy going to each day. And I think that in order for us to really learn how to make our daily stand up better, we need to understand what a daily stand up is. So it's always 15 minutes or less. I like to say 30 seconds per person, not to exceed 15 minutes. And it's important because it helps the team agree on how they're going to deliver the most value for that working day. It gives them a chance to inspect and adapt the plan if necessary or the goal in order to make sure they're meeting the most value that they can deliver in a sprint. It lets the team agree on how they're going to deliver the what throughout the next day. So if there's some pairing that needs to go on or some peer review, it's a good time to make sure those things are clear. And it allows us to pivot, to apply the empirical process, to inspect and adapt, and to make those fine-tuning adjustments as we need to. Now, it's helpful if you remember that there's certain things that we should really be emphasizing and focusing on. Of course, obviously, we want to focus on outcome over output. We don't want to constantly be output driven. We want to make sure we're outcome driven. We also want to focus on priorities and understand that some things are going to be more urgent than others, and that's okay. And we also want to make sure we emphasize that it's not individual ownership, but team ownership of the things that are being asked for to be completed. And I think that if you do those things and you can gain that focus, that's going to help you get off some real good agile footing. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is most daily stand ups I find are run incorrectly. They're run by a scrum master who has instantly become the master of ceremonies, who comes in with music playing and, hey, we'd like to welcome you all to daily stand up. We're so glad you could be here today. So tell me, what did you achieve yesterday? And what do you plan on doing today? And do you have any impediments? Oh my goodness. If it turns into an interview, and if the focus becomes on checking the boxes instead of getting to what we really need to be focused on, then you've lost the whole value of this meeting. And I think more organizations lose value of this meeting because they don't know how or where to focus. And they run a daily stand up like it's a regiment, and they have someone who's commanding answers as opposed to somebody saying, let's get started, and letting the team treat it as it should be treated, right? And I think that, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh my goodness, here comes an analogy. But if you think of it like a sports team in a huddle, right? The huddle is not all about, okay, so tell me, what did you do well last play? The huddle is, what can we do to make a difference? How can we get all on the same page? It's a quick way for us to get together and go team, right? And I don't think it's about so much asking questions as it is seeking answers. And one of the things that the team and a scrum master both need to come in with as part of the agreement when they do their daily stand up is that each situation is going to be different. Every situation is not the same. So sometimes in different situations, there may be a different level of granularity that we go to, or we might focus on it a different way. And that's totally cool, right? Because with regard to focus, we should be able to easily say, does that report, did what we hear meet or contribute towards our sprint goals? Yes or no? And if it did, what are we doing to press forward further because it did meet our goals, right? And we need to make sure those goals are clear, right? Easily consumable. We need to focus on speaking. Did everyone have an opportunity to say their piece? Where there's certain people are being more quiet or more vocal, and how do we get the quiet people to speak up? Is each participant uplifting and supporting another? Make sure you get to that point. We also need to focus on decision making. Is there someone in the room who needs to make a decision? If so, are they present and are they identified? And do we know? And have we given them a clear pretext so that the decision can be made in or before this meeting so when we leave, we have a clear direction? We also need to focus on language, not just regular language, but body language, and on what we're saying, especially with remote international teams. I caught myself the other day. I was in a stand up. I said, geesh, like that. And when I said, geez, a lot of people were like, well, what does that mean? I was like, well, I don't know. It was just a slang term, but it was something that a lot of people didn't understand. So it sounds silly, but make sure you have clear understanders and standings for how you're going to, standards rather, for how you're going to proceed with your daily stand up. For me, for example, even if I'm running virtual, all cameras are all on because body language is so important, right? And we should focus on trust. We shouldn't be questioning people when they report things. We need to make sure that we're trusting the individuals to do the work and that we're engaged with them in a way that shows that they have credibility and that we trust that they'll be able to do the things that we're asking them to do. And I think that if you take the time and make sure you stay within that boundary, 30 seconds or less per person, not to exceed 15 minutes, and only as absolutely needed derail and have a separate meeting. I think this is important. I hear a lot of people say that this meeting is not designed to solve problems. Well, if this meeting's not designed to solve problems, what meeting is? Right? This meeting, and you should be able to solve the problem in 30 seconds or less. And if that 30 seconds is, hey, I ran into that once before, let's get together after and we can have a further discussion, that is perfect. If that 30 seconds is, yeah, I had that problem before, and the answer is go with the REST based web interface, not the SOAP, then that's a good answer, right? I think that people often think that detracting or pontificating or solving a problem is going to lead to complete detraction or pontificating when it doesn't. Oftentimes solving a problem is a good thing to do. So we want to make sure that we only parking lot and say, hey, let's have a separate meeting when absolutely necessary. I think this is a crutch that too many teams use, and they end up having multiple meetings, and they're all tied together with your daily stand-up. So by the time you're done, you end up with an hour or 2 hour daily stand-up time because you have so many additional meetings you need to attend to clarify things that were placed in a parking lot, which is ridiculous. I think the other key to doing this successfully is to agree on how much or how little your scrum master does in this meeting. You should never be updating Jira in this meeting. You should never be, your scrum master is not a secretary and they're not a babysitter. But we need to agree, what is the scrum master going to do? Do they even need to attend? How are they going to help us facilitate? What can they do to help us get this right? And that's all going to be based on the maturity of the team, the maturity of organization, and the potential that you have to do this correctly. So there's lots of flexibility here, lots of fungibility, lots of things that you can do to make it right. Don't be afraid to change up the format a little bit, right? If you're getting close to the end of a release, don't be afraid to pull up an instance. And people are going to say, I can't believe you're saying this. But if you're getting close to the end of a release, don't be afraid to pull up an instance of Jira or whatever tool you're using, Azure DevOps, and show people where you are, what's going on, so that people can see and visualize how close you are to the end. Because I think that's when excitement generates, when you're getting that close. And it's good for people to be able to visualize, right? But I think that doing this every day, on the other hand, is ineffective because then people are all focused on their own work and not focused on each other. So I think when it comes time for us to make sure we're celebrating, the finish line, it's important for us to visualize the finish line. But if the finish line is far away, I'm not going to put up a video camera of the finish line when someone's in mile 1 of their marathon, right? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, for some, that might be motivational, but for others, that might be crippling. So I think it's important for us to understand how that works, right? And I think it's good and most important to have a clear sprint goal. Now, this is something that was heavily emphasized in the most recent edition of the Scrum Guide. And you have to ask yourself, what did we as a team, what did we as a team achieve to get closer to that goal? How did we inch forward even little most further? Just, and I think a lot of people ask the question, how do we turn it up to 13? And that's not what I'm trying to do. I just want to turn it up from 6 to 7 or from 5 to 6 or wherever you are. And I do want to emphasize that I think the one big key to really re-energizing your daily stand-up is to meet the team where they are. I think so often we try to go in and we try to do things based on our knowledge and where we are, instead of meeting the team where they are and letting them learn how they can best leverage this meeting to help them be successful. So I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I have a feeling we're going to get a lot of feedback on this one. But I strongly encourage you to reach out to us, learn more at agiledad.com, or drop some comments below. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.